G'day, I am Mordechai Becher.
And I am Becher and Karsh.
And welcome to Two Rabbis and a Podcast. And today we are going to be a little lighter than our past few podcasts, which were about Jew hatred, blood libels, the realities of Israel and its conflicts. Right? So
Yeah.
We're going to talk today about one of my favorite subjects.
And mine too.
And yours too? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's one of my favorite.
Food.
Yeah, food.
Specifically kosher food and kashrut. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the reasons behind it and some of the misconceptions and some positive kosher food experiences that I may have had, or some others experiences.
You may swoon. Mordechai might swoon.
I might faint during this just from hypoglycemia. And as usual, this will be posted on YouTube and Spotify and Apple and Torah Anytime. So please like and subscribe and share. Like, subscribe, share. This is not hard to do. If you liked it, just press the thing that says like. If you want to share it, there's usually share buttons on all of them, and send it to your friends and subscribe on YouTube, etc. So other people can also be subjected to our opinions and join you in the trauma of our podcast.
Best done when you have a friend around. There is a warning, I think, on some of them that you should not watch this alone.
Right. You should have a support human with you.
Yes, at all times.
A service human. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, that's what they're called. That's the official term. Yeah. No, that's what they're called.
Good. Yeah, so get your service human to be with you for this. Yeah,
yes.
Very important.
Yeah.
So what prompted me to think about talking about kashrut was one of the most unbelievable kosher experiences I've had recently. I was in Marrakesh, Morocco.
For those who are keeping track of Mordechai and I've told you about our parallel lives and how it's uncanny. It's absolutely uncanny. When Mordechai is having experience, I am having almost the identical experience. It's just he's having it in first class and I'm having it in steerage. So while Mordechai was in Morocco and he's about to explain the experience he just had, I too was traveling to St. Louis, Missouri. And many of the things Mordechai has described are available in St. Louis, Missouri.
That's right.
I'm sure. I just don't happen to know where they are. My sister's cooking. I'm sure it's right up there with there. Yeah, way up there. I
she
go
does
with
French
my sister.
Moroccan. Is that she? No.
My sister can cook anything.
Okay, all right.
And she does on a regular basis. All right. Anyways, go ahead with your Morocco.
Yeah. So I was at this destination wedding in Marrakesh, Morocco, of a student of mine, and I got to tell you, I mean, kosher laws forbid the consumption of meat and milk together. In some ways of biblical sources, and some of it is rabbinic, but basically you're not allowed to have meat and milk together. All right, meat and milk don't mix. And there was an excellent meat menu at the wedding, lots of foie gras, which I actually don't eat, but the dessert table. In my life, I have never seen anything like this or tasted anything like it. It was mind-boggling. I don't know what they used for the cream, but because it tasted so much like actual whipped cream, dairy, that a pavlova, meringues, it was a mousse.
You're saying these were pareve?
Yeah,
saying this is pareve.
This is pareve. Pareve, for those who do not know, means neutral, not meat or milk. That means it's the type of thing you can have as a dessert after a meat meal, and it was pareve. I do not know how it was made. It was not made with Richard's Whip, guaranteed. I didn't taste coconut, so it wasn't. I don't think it was made with coconut cream. Whatever it was made with, I had my suspicion: is this really kosher? Right? And I just spoke to the rabbi supervising and the chef. It was all fine. So it was unbelievable, phenomenal. The other amazing kosher experience I had actually wasn't that great, but it was interesting. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, in January, I went with Legacy Kosher Tourist, and there is a Glatt Kosher McDonald's in Buenos Aires. You go, it looks like a regular McDonald's, except it says the word kosher on it. And you look through the front where everyone's they're flipping burgers, etc. In the back, there is a rabbi checking lettuce, and it's unusual to see this in a McDonald's.
Yes.
And so I did try. The fries were excellent. The burger was okay. I've had better burgers. I think my wife makes better burgers, but it's fast food. But that was an interesting experience. There's very little that religious Jews cannot get a kosher equivalent to. In other words, even though there are many things prohibited, right, like meat and milk, but on the other hand, we can get great substitutes.
Yeah.
There's a diner it's called The Diner. It's in Pomona. It's in Monson, New York. One of these classic diners with the stainless steel sides and the classic design that was bought by some Hasidic Jews and turned kosher. So now it's a kosher diner, which is inside. The decor is absolute 100% diner. The food, that cheeseburger, obviously the cheese was fake.
Yeah.
Milkshakes, fake. Now here I have a suspicion that they used probably some chemicals, unlike in Morocco, but it was pretty good. It was a great experience, great food. Right. So, type of reminder: the Talmud actually has a discussion, an exchange between Yalta and Rav Nachman. Yalta is the wife of a great Talmudic sage whose name's Rav Nachman. Yalta says to her husband, says, honey, everything that God prohibited, there is some type of permitted equivalent. She goes through a long list of stuff, not only food, but a list of things that permitted equivalent, like, and she gives a few kosher equivalents to non-kosher foods. Like there's some type of fish which is supposed to taste like pork, and so on and so forth. So she says to her husband, I would like to try meat and milk. I want to try meat and milk. Now, I have a suspicion that with a lot of religious families, right, I don't know, in Brooklyn or West Rogers Park, rabbi's sitting there at his desk, his wife walks in and says, honey, I want to try some meat and milk. What would their reaction be? I don't think very positive. Rav Nachman is totally chilled. He says, yeah, sure. He calls over the chef. He says, grill a cow's udder, the meat from the udder of a cow, because it's got naturally imbued with milk, and it's not prohibited because we didn't mix it. It's naturally there. And he says that should give you that taste. Right? Zvikule, right? Grill it for her, and that's good. So what we see is that Kashrut is not there to limit our culinary experience and to limit our pleasure. I don't think that you see from that Gemara that it's permitted to have kosher equivalents. I remember back in Itri, there were some Israelis who objected to the fact that some of the American students had brought in Bacos. Is that what it's called? Bacos? Type of this American chip thing that you can sprinkle.
I have some right over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very good. So Bacos, that was one of the Americans was sprinkling it on whatever they had in the dining room at Itri, at that yeshiva, and Israeli innocently asked what it is, and he says it's ta'am chazir. It's the taste of pig, and the Israeli freaked out, and a bunch of Israelis freaked out, and they say, you asur, he goes, blah blah blah. Anyway, I think went to Rav Yoel Schwartz, alav shalom, the mashkiach, and he said no, and he quoted this Gemara as saying that there's nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with it.
You've had, I seem to remember years ago you bringing up that people had told you they found it offensive that there's shrimp sauce or something like on the labeling would be similar to Bacos, a similar kind of thing. And you had mentioned that it might even be problematic for
Well, yeah, it depends
you
what.
to be offended.
Oh,
But
oh,
right, but you were like, should you be offended or should you not? Because it's a chok. The fact that we can't eat it, it's not because we're supposed to be disgusted by it. It's because we're just not supposed to eat it.
well, that's an excellent point. That's actually the Rambam, Maimonides, in his introduction to Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, in the 6th chapter, he quotes a statement by Rosh Shimon ben Gamliel, and there's slightly different versions of this statement, but the way he quotes it is, Rosh Shimon ben Gamliel said, a person should not say, "I can't stand pork. Meat and milk makes me nauseous, disgusting." Rather, he should say, "Efshili, I would love it. But what can I do? God said it's prohibited." So Maimonides says that we have to be, and it's a lengthy discussion, which it's probably too much for right now, but
Right.
the Rambam there says that that statement is only said about mitzvahs which are whose reasons are not obvious, like chukim, statutes, where the reason, in other words, something where it's type of obvious why God would prohibit it, like theft and violence and murder, right? There, the rabbis do not advocate that a person should say, "I would love to beat the living daylights out of that guy, but what can I do? God said not to." That's not a good thing. There,
That's
we're
like a
supposed to,
mitos. Yeah.
exactly, we're supposed to
Yeah.
inculcate these traits, justice and peacefulness and so on into our personalities. But he says when it comes to something like the prohibition against crab or calamari or whatever, right? There's no obligation to become a person who intuitively hates that. That's almost ridiculous. The reason I refrain is because God said not to. I always think that, if you teach your kids that it tastes disgusting, it's A, intellectually dishonest, and B, according to the Rambam, you're defeating the purpose. Because from the Rambam, it sounds like the purpose here is self-control, discipline. If I walk by something and I look at it and say, "Oh, disgusting," that's
That's
not
not discipline.
self-control. That's not
Yeah.
discipline.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, when you get on the plane and they ask you kosher food, right? Yeah, if it may not be great. I mean, depends where it comes from.
Right.
But it's not about the taste. It's about the fact that and I found in encounters with, let's say, people who kosher is very foreign to. Like, I don't know, I've been at small airports, and I remember I was at one airport. I was looking at the packaging of some stuff, and person behind the counter said to me, "Can I help you, sir? You seem to be looking for something." I said, "Yeah, I'm seeing if there's a kosher certification." She says, "I don't think so." Right. Now, I don't know if she knew what it was. I said,
Right.
"Yeah, you're
Right.
right. None of it has." So I said, "I'll just have the coffee." I said, "Well, if you're hungry, why don't you just get that?" I said, "Because it's not kosher." And it was difficult. You could see that her mind was not comprehending the concept of, "No, I won't do it. I won't have it."
Right. Right.
It's right. And she said, "Well, what if you're hungry?" I said, "Look, if I was starving, my life was in danger, and I needed the nutrition of this packaged muffin to save my life, I would definitely eat it. But I'm a little peckish. I would like something with my coffee. Is not justified transgressing. I don't know. It's
Right.
you don't do it.
Rav
My
Shmuel Dishon. Yeah, go ahead. You go.
go ahead.
Yeah. So Rav Shmuel Dishon, who's a great storyteller. So years ago, I heard him speak, and he was telling the story about driving along the interstate in New York and stopping at a rest stop that had like those little fast food places, but they all also have like a little store. And he was in the little store looking to see what he could eat, going through the food like you were. And another guy came over to him and introduced himself, a young man who said that he's Jewish and he feels bad for Rabbi Dishon because he realizes he must be hungry and that he won't eat anything that's not kosher. He, on the other hand, eats everything, so he's not hungry. So, and Rabbi Dishon said, I would not have done this if I wasn't hungry. But he said I wasn't in complete control of myself. So he said, I turned to the young man and I said, it's me who feels sorry for you. He said, because of these circumstances and many others in my life, I'm being trained to make decisions when they're hard. So I get into situations. This is not a very hard one, but I get put into situations and I have to make a moral decision that sometimes isn't easy. But when do you ever practice? You never get a chance to practice. And
No,
something's going to come up that's going to be difficult for you. And you're going to try to marshal your strength, but you haven't had the practice. I've been practicing since I was a young man.
that's
So
an incredible
thankfully he wasn't, yeah,
response.
yeah,
I once
yeah,
heard from a friend of mine who used to live in Chicago, and there was a woman there, elderly woman, who gave large amounts of money to Jewish educational institutions, religious education. And he asked her what motivated her to do so, inasmuch as she personally did not seem to be religious,
yeah.
yet she gave a lot of money to Jewish education. So turns out she says she's a Holocaust survivor.
Uh-huh.
And she was on a train on the way to a camp, I think from Hungary, which means would have been probably Hungary to Auschwitz,
Right.
Birkenau.
Yeah.
And they were packed into the cattle cars and they were allowed out after, I think, a day. So they got out and there had been no food. There was very little water or anything. Everyone was hot, hungry. It was terrible. So they're out and she sees a woman with her young son, probably about 6 or 7. And there was a man with them, well, not with them, but he was in the car, and he came out and he had some salami in his pocket and he offered it to the little boy. And the little boy looks at his mother and he says, Mama, du weißt, das ist kosher. He said in Yiddish, Mummy, do you know if that's kosher? She looks at the man says, yes. And she says, it's kosher. The kid takes it, makes a blessing, and then eats it. She said she saw the level of self-discipline and control and just moral strength of this 6-year-old kid in
Wow.
these circumstances.
Wow.
She said, if I survive, I'm dedicating myself to supporting education that produces this. That's
Wow.
an unbelievable, incredible story.
Yeah.
Which a close friend of mine asked her about this, and that's what she said. That's what she said.
Wow.
Incredible. So, but yeah, people are very uncomprehending about it. They don't really understand. Like sometimes flight crews. Now they're, it depends on where you are, but the flight crew will say, well, okay, we don't have kosher meals because sometimes there's mess ups or I forgot to order, whatever. Said, well, can I bring you another meal? And you say, no, thank you. I won't. You're not going to eat anything? I said, no, thank you. That's fine. Right. So it's hard for them to understand. My son lives in Dallas, one of my sons. So he was at he had some business meeting with someone. So he took him to the kosher restaurant, a kosher meat restaurant. I forgot what it's called. I was told it's very good. And they eat there. Anyway, he has another meeting with this guy a month or two later, takes him to the same restaurant because that's the only nice kosher meat restaurant there. And the guy says, this non-Jewish business, not a partner, but a businessman, he says, isn't this where we went last time? And he says, yeah, this is the only, really good meat restaurant. He says, what? In all of Dallas? He says, yeah. He says, so you have basically eliminated 99.99% of restaurants from your choice voluntarily. You said, my son, yeah. He was like, what? And it really is interesting. A religious Jew has basically eliminated huge amounts of available food from their diet, from our diets, voluntarily. No one, right? Sort of interesting.
But as you point out, once you get used to it and the ex we don't experience it as that we are somehow fasting or lacking.
Right.
Once we've worked out the details, we're eating maybe not at restaurants all the, at just any restaurant, but we're eating pretty well. We don't, it's not like
Oh,
we're ascetic.
I
What
don't,
like the
I don't feel
result
like
of it,
I'm not suffering. Yeah, no, yeah.
the which some people might think that experience would be that you're constantly living like an ascetic, holding back food from yourself. But it's just a matter of preparation mostly, of
Yes.
preparing. How am I going to have food?
Mhm.
But once you've figured that out, it's not an ascetic lifestyle.
No, not at all. Not at all. Um, and it's interesting because there are many kosher products available. People don't even realize they're kosher. They have the symbol on them, and in the United States, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's virtually every supermarket you go to. But one of the effects of eating kosher, I think, is a tremendous amount of community building.
Yes.
Kashrut. You go
Yeah.
to places, and if there's a kosher grill, non-religious Israelis are hanging out there.
Yeah.
Hasidim traveling on business are there.
Yeah.
Local Orthodox Jews are there.
Yeah.
Because it's kosher, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I find the phenomenon that there are non-religious Jews who will just go because it's like a Jewish place,
Yeah.
right? They feel
Yeah.
part. You feel like part of the
Yeah.
family.
We definitely have
Isn't
that
that
here.
beautiful? It's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing to see.
I
I like that.
agree. And also, I remember years ago, there was a young guy who was studying at Or Sameach, and he spent like a week in Egypt with um, with a couple of friends. And in order for him to eat in Egypt, he had to find out where there was kosher food. And he had all these experiences with the Jewish community that he would have otherwise never had he needed kosher food.
Yep.
He would have gone on a standard kind of touristy thing of Egypt, but because of the fact that he had to have kosher food, he ended up meeting people, making friendships, and discovering what the Jewish community was like on a level that he would have never had. And he was trying to explain that to somebody who said afterwards, "I feel terrible for you. Like, what did you do about the food?" And he was trying to say that food was an entree to an experience, the level of which I would have never had otherwise.
It's an
Yeah.
incredible thing, and it creates connection. I was in Heathrow Airport, um, and I have this app called Is It Kosher, which is put out by the London based in the London Kashrut, the London Beth, and it says only applicable to products in the UK. But basically,
Uh-huh.
you put in the name of the product, and it tells you yes, no. It's great,
That's awesome.
very
Yeah.
easy. So I'm standing in the in a store at the airport, looking at chocolate bars and stuff like that, and typing it in, looking at the chocolate bar, typing in the name. Okay, this is a group of three young women, not dressed necessarily in a modest fashion, so they were not obviously they were certainly not
Orthodox.
orthodox, and
Yeah.
they're looking at me, and okay, and they walk over to me with some chocolate bars and they said, "Are you checking if these are kosher?" I said, "Yeah, they're Israeli. Could you please check
Nice.
for us if these are
Nice.
kosher?" So I check
Nice.
for them, kosher, bingo. We're all eating
Yeah.
Cadbury's, very good stuff, right? So,
We were in Rome in the airport, and for some reason it stuck in my head to wonder, can we drink the milk? We had not prepared to go. If we had prepared, we would have asked these kind of questions. We did not think it through. And we're in the airport, and my wife loves coffee and wants to have milk in her coffee. And we were not sure if first of all, for ignorant Americans, we did find out in the end that we could have the milk. For ignorant Americans, if you ask for a latte
Yeah.
in Rome, that means milk, just plain milk.
No, that's what latte. Yeah.
You look like an idiot. Anyways, but so we weren't sure. And we met every frum person, I think, in that airport because everybody was wondering, are we allowed to have the milk? And it was a weird time. So you couldn't call like Kashrut people because they were asleep. It was like a weird moment. We did find out that according to the Chicago Rabbinical Council, you can drink the milk in Rome. We did find that out. Um, we had even eaten in a Milchik's restaurant the night before in the ghetto, but it was Chol Yisrael. So we
Yeah.
didn't know if it has to be Chol Yisrael.
La Taverna del Ghetto, is that the it's a good
Was
place?
that it? The milk, it had sort of arches
Yeah.
and I have
It's
pictures.
called
I'll
La
show you.
Taverna del Ghetto. That's a very good.
Okay. It was good.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with this milk, I mean, milk from a anything that comes from a non-kosher animal is not kosher. So camel's milk, not kosher. If it comes from a kosher animal, goats, sheep, and most commonly cows, it's kosher milk. Question is, if you're in a country, you need to know, does this milk exclusively come from cows? So if you're in Dubai, not necessarily, because the milk, a lot of the milk is camel milk, very standard to use in chocolates there, right? If you're in America, any commercially available milk is cow's milk supervised by the Department of Agriculture and FDA and so on and so forth. There are Jews who are stringent only to have milk which is supervised by rabbinically appointed supervisors, kosher Jewish supervisors. That's called
And they are
chalav
assuring you that
trial.
it is cow's milk.
All they're doing is assuring you that it's cow's milk. Yes,
Right.
there are those who drink any milk commercially available because the government assures that it's cow milk. But yeah, that's where the source of doubt comes from in other countries. So we're in China, and there was a guy on our tour, a few people on the tour, who we were at a Starbucks, and I was able to determine you should not have the milk in China, and they needed milk in their coffee. So one product which is found, there are a couple of products which are found all over the world, kosher, just about almost anywhere you go. One of them is Haagen-Dazs ice creams, which have
Seriously.
in China at OU, and I called the OU and they said, yeah,
Yeah.
these are made in France and they're kosher and it's
Yeah.
fine. I said, buy yourself a little Haagen-Dazs vanilla, put a spoon in your coffee. You've got excellent coffee with milk. So
And was he
yes,
happy with that?
he
That
was
was a good solution.
overjoyed.
Do you know, I think it's in North Carolina, there is a large camel farm
I did not know that. I
where
would
they
not expect
milk the camels. They specifically have this farm for camel's milk because I don't know how long ago this word spread that camel's milk could be effective when it comes to autism. I don't know if it's a certain type of autism. I don't think that this is a medically encouraged
that.
practice,
Doesn't sound like
but the word went out, and so there are people where their camel's milk is a sought after commodity because of it. So Rabbi Reese from the Chicago Rabbinical Council, Rabbi Reese, actually he himself was educated at Yale. He has a law degree from Yale, and he's an incredible Talmid Chacham. So he actually wrote the Illinois law that requires that actually puts it in. I think many states have this, but he wrote the Illinois version that if you use any other type of milk in a product, it has to state so explicitly on the label. So
oh,
if camel's milk was included, it would have to legally state that camel's milk was in it. And this he was doing to protect our ability to still drink milk, even if it's not Chol Yisrael in Illinois.
thank you, Rabbi Reese. You have our appreciation, yes,
Yeah.
for chocolate lovers and and others. And it's interesting type of products which are commonly found. I'll tell you one which is almost everywhere in the world. One of them is Haagen-Dazs ice cream. The other
Yeah.
one are Walker's Scottish shortbread.
Seriously.
It's a
Those are good. I actually like those
product from
things.
England. It's like butter cookies,
Yeah. Oh, they're
which
good.
are delicious. Oh, you
Yeah.
kosher certification. I'm at a rest. We stop at a rest area. Oh, you were with me. We're at a
In
rest
India.
area in India.
In India. That's right.
And we stopped at this rest area, and you're thinking, what is going to be kosher here? It's a rest area in India, right? And there was Walker's Scottish shortbread. I think I cried. I think I may have cried. I don't remember, but it was very. We were
There
in.
was even some question. I remember the Rabbi Fishbane from the CRC here, Rabbi Shalom Fishbane. He spoke they have these halacha summits every
Oh, yeah.
year, and he spoke, it was a Q&A, and he mentioned that Coca-Cola, we assume that Coca-Cola is kosher. That's like a chapter on American kashrus in general, how they got to find out the ingredients, the secret ingredients of Coca-Cola. Like this representative, either the OU or somebody, the mashgiach, was given like this secret that only like three people in the world had, which is what are actually the ingredients of Coke. But anyways, Coke being kosher was taken for granted for us, our parents, or
Yeah, people drink it every.
etc. But it doesn't necessarily have to be in every country. When
Uh-huh.
you travel to another country, they are not necessarily beholden to ensure that those ingredients are
They're not
exactly the
really.
same. Apparently
I
not.
assumed that it was all that it had that was
I, I
tightly controlled
I
by
would call just to be
Coca-Cola
sure. I would
Corporation.
call somebody who knows for sure. He said Pepsi is good everywhere, but Coke not necessarily. But I would obviously check, with somebody that and try to make sure they're not on the Pepsi. I did not have an accountant go through to find out if he's being paid by Pepsi. My understanding is he's not. And that when he said you can have Pepsi anywhere, he was doing it because that's what the kashrus world needs to hear.
I get it. I
But
get it.
Coke, not necessarily. There's certain things or a brand of something that you've eaten in the States, but you
May
see
not
it
be kosher
somewhere
somewhere
else.
else. No,
Yeah.
definitely not. You have
Yeah.
to check for. You have to either get like an app. There is a app in Europe that you can use. What's the app? The European app. There's something called. I don't have the Euro. I have the Is It Kosher, which is the English, the app
Right.
from England. But there's another one for Europe. There's one in Australia from the Mizrahi Kashrut Commission in Melbourne, because a lot of
Yeah.
countries don't have enough of a consumer base that they'll have kosher stamps on the kosher symbol on
On
the
the food.
on the food. So those countries, you have a list, which used to be an actual like a booklet, but now, of course, it's done as an app, and that's how you find if something is kosher. But it is a matter of it does. I think one of the I don't know. I have a feeling that one of the ideas behind Kashrut is to maintain that type of social
Mm.
cohesion. The Jewish people, we
We
have our
certainly
own
see it at
have
work.
our
Yeah.
own food sources, our own restaurants, our own bakeries, and that
Right.
type of thing, which is I think is positive. Otherwise, we'd get lost and assimilated in the vast population of the world.
And
There,
we see that there were at different stages decrees made
yes.
not to eat the cooked food cooked by Gentiles or not to
Hmm.
um and not to have the wine of Gentiles and not to have the oil, not all of them stuck to the same degree, but not to have the oil of Gentiles. In other words, food is where assimilation can, a dramatic place where assimilation can occur
It
if we
does
can all eat
brings people
together.
together.
Right.
Brings people together.
Yeah.
And so again, that to me, those two ideas, the idea of controls, discipline, um, uh, moral training, number
What
one.
about your spiritual?
Yeah,
Because they talk about how non-kosher food can impact your spiritual condition. You can get timtum halev or something. You
yes.
get some kind of. So what do you have to say about that?
So many of our sages do believe that non-kosher food actually can have a negative spiritual impact on you. Timtum means it type of makes you less spiritually sensitive. That's how Rav Hirsch describes it. The Kabbalists talk about it making you, less receptive to the spiritual. So there's something intrinsic in the non-kosher food, which is negative from a spiritual perspective. Doesn't mean it's not healthy. It means that it spiritually makes you less receptive to Torah, to spirituality, and so on. I don't know if Maimonides agrees with that. I think he might say, as we were discussing before, that it's the negativity is because God forbade it, not because there's anything intrinsic in it. But the Kabbalists, many of our sages,
so
what
we were talking about before was this. I forgot. It's actually there's a debate and discussion of Socrates. I knew this person's name, but anyways, he asked the question: is something wrong because God forbade it, or does God forbid it because something is wrong?
Was it Euripides?
It's a D's, but not Eurip. It's one of those though. It's got a D's in it.
So yeah. So when it comes to Kashrut, that's certainly a debate. I think it's not clear. The Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, and the Ramban before him, they both say that when you have a person does a sin, there are two components. There's the inherent corruptive aspect of the sin that corrupts the soul, and there is the rebellion against God's word. So that sounds very much from Nachmanides and Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto that there's something intrinsically negative in the prohibited activity, aside from the rebellion against God, because they're saying two components.
Right.
Two distinct components.
Now, you could say, since God forbade it, it developed those negative qualities. Because one of the questions would be, let's say I had to eat something that's not kosher because of an illness. So I'm certainly not rebelling against God. He's commanding me to do it. He wants me to live, so I have to do it. But now that I've consumed that thing, am I like spiritually stupider? Right. Or does that completely waived because Hashem didn't forbid me from doing this?
Interesting. So I'm thinking there's a Mishnah that's cited halachically in the Code of Jewish Law. Let's say there's a butcher who's selling meat, presumably kosher, and we find out that it's not kosher.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately has happened.
Yes.
So let's say I bought a $100 piece of meat, a cowboy, what are they called? Cowboy steaks?
Yeah, I don't think they're only 100, but yeah, go ahead with that.
Never bought one, but yeah. So you buy $100 piece of meat. I'm just doing it because I'm not good at math, so 100's going to make it easier for me. Yeah, so you buy $100 piece of meat.
Yeah.
And you've eaten half of it. And you find out, you get a phone call, right? Becher, that butcher saw a big scandal. They found out it's not kosher. So I stop eating. Now I go to the guy and I say, I want my money back. Now I've eaten $50 worth of it.
Right.
Does the butcher have to give me back $100 or 50? So the Code of Jewish Law says it depends. If this thing was prohibited by Torah law, even if I ate the whole thing, he's got to pay me back $100. If it was prohibited by rabbinic law, it was something rabbinically prohibited. I can't think of an example, but rabbinically prohibited. Then he only pays me back less what I ate. So if I ate $50 worth, he only has to give me back $50 if it's rabbinically prohibited. Now, so what's the distinction?
Yeah.
What's the distinction? So some commentaries say so that if he sold something biblically prohibited, it's a fine. There's a fine on him, the penalty that he's got to pay back, even though I ate some of it. If it's on rabbinic, they didn't penalize him. That's one view. But
Yeah.
Nasivus has a different view, which he says is this. He says the prohibition against doing something which is prohibited by the rabbis is derived from Deuteronomy 17, which says don't deviate from what they tell you right or left. It's the prohibition against rebellion against the authority of the rabbis. If I bought this in good conscience and I believed in confidence that it was kosher, there was no rebellion. So therefore, I didn't eat something prohibited. I didn't. It wasn't even a transgression. If, however, it's prohibited by the Torah, even though I ate it inadvertently, I didn't deliberately rebel against Torah, but I ate something which is inherently negative. So yeah, I ate $50 worth of the steak, but it's like I ate $50 worth of Drano. So he's got to pay me back for that too.
And that's also about tshuva, right? The Nesivos is about
Yes.
whether if you transgress a rabbinic ordinance, do you need to do tshuva afterwards?
So if I
And
did it
what are you doing
mistake,
tshuva
if I
for?
did it inadvertently, accidentally, I don't have to. There was no rebellion. With a Torah law, there's something intrinsic about it, which that certainly sounds like the idea of
Yeah,
that it's
it's in
a
there.
type of a
Yeah,
spiritual poison negative.
right.
We know that halakhically there's debates about a person has to eat on Shabbos or Yom Kippur or something like that. Shabbos, he's dangerously ill. He needs the food. Do you give him non-kosher, or do you shecht an animal and give him kosher?
You have already prepared not kosher, which would not require shechita.
No transgression of Shabbat.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so what do you do?
So I believe you shecht it because Shabbat is pushed aside in the case of danger to life,
Yeah,
right? As is also non-kosher
treif,
food.
right.
Right? However, right, the eating if since Shabbat is permitted to transgress in order to save his life, shechting it, so he's only got one problem, which is Shabbat, right? Which
Yeah.
is pushed aside in the case of danger to life, right? Other in the non-kosher food, he's so that's one. That's
So you're saying in the non-kosher, this would be another example potentially of the consideration that even if it was permitted to eat the non-kosher food, it's still not best case scenario.
that sounds like it. Sounds like
Right,
that.
that there could be an impact.
Right.
Right, I have another, you may not think of it very related connection to this discussion, but to me it's related because I'm thinking of it while we're talking. And that is this. Go all the way back to the 6 days of creation and then Shabbos. So, like the first substantive discussion that Adam and Hashem have after the bracha that Hashem gives humankind is, what's for dinner,
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
basically. Like the first discussion. This is like
The
the
first
first thing.
positive commandment and the first negative.
Right. It's about what to eat and what not to eat. This comes up so early. Um, so I just wanted to make that point, but then to also ask you, this is it's connected to my museum of things you would expect to find in the Torah, but do not, but it's not a neat connection. But the question is, why doesn't he tell him about drink? He tells him about food, but he doesn't talk to him about drink. He doesn't say where you can find water or anything. He just says you're going to eat this stuff, but he doesn't say and you'll drink from the river or something. He doesn't. He doesn't. And just in general, our relationship to food and our relationship to drink are not the same. This is not just Jews. This is human beings. I think we schedule meals. Meals are scheduled part of the day. that's not necessarily how we feel about drinking. I mean, we get a drink along the way, or maybe you'll have a drink at the meal, or you'll just get a drink. You'll figure out drinking. That's what it seems to be for many people in their culture. But when it comes to food, food is so important. It's it's scheduled part of our lives. And the higher your culture, the more sophisticated or dignified your culture, we tend to think the more you put into that food, the thinking about it, the planning for it, and the setting aside time for it.
That's very interesting observation. Yeah, very interesting.
As part of it also, again, this is early stages, this part, but we do not drink any korban. We eat korbanos, but we don't drink any korban. There is
Offerings, for
wine.
example,
We have a
offerings,
wine and we have water
which we don't
offerings,
drink, but we
but we
do
do not
we
drink
do eat the
them.
animal. Yeah.
Right, but we do not drink from any of the korbanos. I'm just throwing that out there also as an interesting distinction between eating and drinking.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we do know that the section of the Torah which is halachic and legal is compared to eating basar, lechem, and basar, bread and meat. The section of the Torah that is the agadata, the philosophical homiletic section, is compared to drinking wine. Yena shel Torah.
Interesting.
I don't know. Again,
Interesting.
I don't know if that's related.
Interesting.
And I know that, for example, Rav Shlomo Fisher points out that when it comes to the halachic aspects of the Torah, there are rules that you should teach in the most concise way possible. Do not waste words. Be very focused. When it comes to the agadic part, the philosophical homiletic part, you should be expansive and add words and add ideas and have it at length. And he
So you have
relates
like the
this to the
fixed part
yes,
and
he relates this to the drinking of wine versus eating food. And now,
interesting.
again, this is something you can take and
Right.
think about.
Well,
And
we're
for our
just, yeah, we're just
viewers out
starting to
there,
talk. Yeah.
you are permitted to think. Yes, on our podcast, we permit our viewers to think. Would you
Yes.
agree with that, Rabbi Karsh?
And to ask questions without knowing where the
Please.
answers might go.
Okay. All right. I think I'm actually getting hungry from all this. So, but thank you, folks. Thank you for watching, listening, sharing, liking, subscribing, etc. And God willing, we'll see you next time, and maybe we'll continue this discussion.
You don't think we covered everything about kashrus in this episode?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right,
But
whatever.
od chazon l'moed, there's time for more next week, God willing. And thank you very much, everyone.
All right. Be well, guys.